Oh, we'll try again. Somehow I've muted myself, but we are actually live. This is Ask a Clutter Boss, the internet's best weekly decluttering advice show. I am Jess Marcy. I am your host for today. If you're on here live, go ahead and say hello. Good morning. It's 11:30 Eastern Time on Tuesday, May 7th. Hello, hello, hello. If you have a question that was not submitted in advance, you can always go ahead and post it into the comments and I can answer it live. But otherwise, we do have, as usual, some great questions to get us going today. Hello, Denise. It's so nice to see you here. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. All right, our first question here. This is a great question. We all tend to have these little collections of things that they're hard to figure out what would be the best home for them. And this question really speaks to that. What do you do with reusable shopping bags? Good question. If you're here in the comments, let us know, what do you do with reusable shopping bags? Is this a collection of items that you struggle to find good storage for? The question goes on to ask, I live close to 3 markets, and yes, I have had to buy a second bag because I forgot to bring one. So reusable shopping bags are a collection that is kind of new to our culture that I think we all just tend to accumulate a lot of them. As with any collection, we want to make sure that we're only keeping what we actually need and use. So I frequently go through my collection of reusable shopping bags and get rid of the excess because they're really pretty difficult to store and it's unnecessary to have 50 of them. I feel like every event that I go to, every store that I go to, you come back with some really nice shopping bags, especially if you live in a state that doesn't have plastic bags. Like in New York, there are no plastic bags at grocery stores. So reusable bags are definitely the thing to have on hand. The best solution that I have found for reusable shopping bags is to actually store them in my car. I store them in my car because I often get to the store and realize, oh shoot, I wish I had my shopping bags. I usually have one small one folded into my purse, but after doing that so many times, just like this person who asked the question, after getting to the store so many times and realizing I did not have my reusable shopping bags, and again, needed them because we don't have plastic bags in New York, and the paper bags are terrible, I just decided I'm going to start storing these in my car because that's when I think of it, that's where I am. And it's often too late to go home and get my shopping bags that I left at home. So my strategy now is I go to the grocery store, my reusable bags are stored in my car. I take them into the grocery store, do my shopping, come home, unload the groceries, and I typically hang them on the door to go out to the car. So if I don't immediately put them back into the car, the next time I walk out the door, I grab them and pop them into the car. I also have one shopping bag that I use to hold all the rest of my shopping bags. So I fold them up and I put them into one shopping bag so they're not loose everywhere. And that just is how I deal with reusable shopping bags. If I was somebody who I found it easier to remember little details, like if I go shopping, get the shopping bags from the house, then I would find a storage solution inside my house, but that is not me. Although I am a professional organizer, I am definitely more of an ADD type personality. There's a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I think a lot of us can relate to this. I just don't think of these things until it happens in the moment. And in this moment, I am too far to go home and get my reusable shopping bags. So I store them right in my car. It works out great. And I know there's some comments over here about reusable shopping bags. So let me pop over to the comments and see if there's any other good tips in here. Teresa, Hope, Sandra, good morning. Teresa says, I have my favorites that I keep in a zippered reusable bag from sheets in my trunk. It helps them stay compressed. Yeah, that's a great idea. Let me see here. The ones I don't like so much, I use like old plastic ones that I had no ties to. I love this. So Teresa actually uses, there's The reusable bag from Sheets, so that zipper plastic bag, that would be a great way to store these, to keep reusable bags in the car. Perfect. That's perfect. Denise, I have a special container that hangs on the doorknob of the pantry. We use them for storing shoes when we need to put in a suitcase, and for the trash container, those cheap plastic bags. The others are in the car. Really good ideas there too. Hope says, I have some reusable bags at home, some in my car and some in my storage unit that I've been working on emptying. So breaking up the collection and keeping it in multiple locations can also work. When it comes to organization and where to store things, you really want to figure out how your brain works and mirror that with your storage. So however your brain works, when do you think of things? Where do you need things? See if you can create a storage and organization system that works with the way that you cognitively think of things. Good morning, Linda. So that is all about reusable shopping bags. Also in the comments, let me know the state that you live in. Do you still have plastic bags available for grocery shopping? What is your bag situation? I know as I have traveled around the country, going from grocery store to grocery store in different locations, it's different everywhere. So I think when we think about decluttering and organizing and disposal of items, it's really important to remember that what works for someone and the circumstances that might exist in your life are not the same for somebody else. So when we're talking about how to declutter, how to organize, how to let go of items, we all don't have the same scenarios, even though we're in the same country, unless you're listening from Europe. We're all mostly in the same country, but even within states and from town to town, there's differences in garbage pickup and disposal. There's differences in local rules and regulations. There's just a lot. There's differences in how far or how close we are to recycling centers, how easy it is to let go of things. And just our access to things like plastic bags versus reusable bags, it varies around the country. So that's one of the reasons that we always advise being completely judgment-free in our communities, because we never know what the real circumstances are for somebody else. So what works for us or what we think is the right thing to do may not even be available to somebody else. Okay, in Kansas, we still have plastic bags. I reuse them for kitty litter and cleaning and small trash cans. We actually, after New York got rid of the small plastic bags, I noticed that I was only using my bigger trash cans at home because I only was buying those 13-gallon trash bags. So over time, I've just slowly gotten rid of my smaller trash cans because I would have to buy plastic bags to put in them. And that seemed like, I don't know, it didn't seem like the right thing for me. So Trish also shares with us that take back your stores that have recycling bins for them. Yeah, there are some stores that have recycling bins for them, and that's really helpful to know. Oh, Teresa joining us from Canada. Plastic bags have been basically banned for the most part here in Ontario, the Greater Toronto area. Yep. So differences all around the city, all around the country, and all around the world, for sure. All right, let's move on to the next question. Once again, if you're joining us live and you have a question that was not previously submitted, go ahead and pop it into the comments. If we have time, we will definitely get to it. Question number 2, I want to scan old family photo albums. I want to scan old family photos in albums and digitize them. I know this has been discussed before. Do I just put digital photos in the search bar to find the information? Thank you so much. Okay, so digital old family photos should definitely be digitized. Photos are on a medium that is not made for longevity, especially older family photos. There were certain decades, like the 70s, for example, where the quality of the archival quality of the photos was really poor. So over time, photos degrade, especially if they're being stored improperly, which for the most part, most of us are storing our photos improperly, whether we realize it or not, or we have gotten collections, we have received collections of photos from our family members, and they're in those old albums with the sticky plastic over the picture. it's not a great it's not a great situation from an archival standpoint. So the best thing that we can do to preserve our older family photos is to digitize them. The easiest way to digitize them is really just to use your phone. There's plenty of apps that you can download that will scan the photos. They do a high quality scan. And then from there, my recommendation is to put all of your photos onto Google Photos. I love Google Photos because it is free for the most part. If you have a large collection of photos, you might have to pay a nominal fee. It is accessible from every device, so you don't have to have a specific piece of hardware like a DVD drive or a thumb drive. You don't have to have any hardware to access it. You can access it from your phone, your computer. Anyone can access it as long as you can get into your Google account. And the other thing that I love about Google Photos is it is so searchable. So once you have digitized your photos, you want to upload them to your Google Photos account. Once they're in your Google Photos account, you really don't need to do anything else. You can literally search in Google Photos for a black and white photo of a woman wearing a hat on a boat, and it will show every photo that you have of a woman wearing a hat on a boat that's black and white. The searchability of large digital collections is so much more important than the organization of those collections because systems require maintenance. If you have a complicated system when it comes to your digital photos, so if you're, you know, labeling them by, let's say, chronologically, but you don't always know the date, and then by person, but you don't always know the person. There's a lot of ways that those systems can break down, and then you have to remember what your system was, your organizational system. So you have to remember the file structure, what, if you started chronologically, or if you started by person, or if you started by family, or however you did it. And you have to remember to do that each and every time. And that's a lot of maintenance. That's so many steps. It's so much easier to just be able to search for the photo. The other thing is when we have these organizational systems, if other people need to access these systems or use these systems, and this goes for digital files, it goes for any organizational system in your home or your life, if somebody else needs to use that system, they need to understand and follow your methodology for organization. This is why systems tend to fail. Whenever I've tried like a chore system or just any system around my house, if every single family member is not completely on board and following the system, then I need to go and adjust it. So fix it, maintain it. Because not everyone is doing it the way that it's, even putting food away in the fridge. Like for the most part, my family puts the right food in the right spots, but there's a whole section that just gets stuff tossed into it, regardless of how many times I say, this is not where this goes. This is not where this goes. Systems require maintenance. Giant digital systems require a lot of maintenance, and it's hard to remember how you organized it, or even to think about communicating your organizational methods to somebody else, right? We don't even consider that. So we want searchable systems. That is the long answer here. We want searchable digital files, because if you can search the file, you're going to find what you're looking for so much more quickly than if you're trying to remember how you organized it. Is this making sense? So Google Photos, very searchable. Once you digitize your photos and get them into Google Photos, you can create an album with just those photos, and then you can share that album with anyone else. So this is a great way to share these photos with other members of your family. Google Photos, 2 thumbs up. I will always recommend this until something better comes along. But as far as I have found and researched, there is nothing that has better searchability than Google Photos. So, and everyone can have a Google Photos account. Like if you're storing your photos on like Dropbox or some very specific photo thing that other people don't tend to have an account for, that's another barrier to them receiving those photos. So Google Photos, pretty much everyone at this point has a Google account, and that makes them more accessible in that way also. Yes. All right, Denise. Glad you've heard this spiel so many times at this point. I am glad that it was working for you too. Highly recommend. All right. The last question that we have that was submitted today is a really good one as well. And we're switching gears here. I need to move my house in the next 6 months, and I have 4 kids, which brings a lot of toys. Yes, it does. Any tips on how to cut down the clothes and the toys to make packing easier? When you are planning for a move, whether you have children or maybe you have your adult children's stuff or you have whatever, a household full of things. So the average American household has 300,000 items in it. Let's think about that from a moving perspective. That is a lot to move. 300,000 items is a lot to move. Anything that you can do to reduce the amount that you're moving is going to help you out. I would declutter before you move. And this, I think a lot of times moves just kind of sneak up on us. Even if we're planning for them, anticipating them, all of a sudden they're there and you haven't decluttered like you thought you would. So then you're packing up all this stuff, unpacking it, and then thinking about decluttering it. Or you have boxes of stuff that you've moved that you've not unpacked, and they're just sitting in your garage or your attic or your basement. Is anybody has that scenario going on? And then they're just weighing on your mind because you don't want to just throw out the box or donate the box because you want to go through it, but it's going to take a lot of time to go through it. So I would definitely advise you to embrace this one single word when it comes to decluttering before you move. And that is ruthless. Ruthless. Be ruthless with your decluttering before you move. There are lots and lots of studies and statistics about how many toys kids have versus how many toys kids play with. And from a neuroscience standpoint, children's brains develop really well when they engage in outdoor play, when they engage in imaginary play. Giving our children more toys does not equal them being advanced in school or in any other area of life. And in fact, the more toys they have, the harder it is for children to engage on a really deep level with a single toy. So it's that the whole thing about choice. Too much choice is actually paralyzing. The more choice we have, the harder it is to make a decision. And this applies to children and toys. The more toys they have to play with, the harder it is for them to decide what to play with. And they tend to migrate from one thing to another without actually engaging in that deeper play that is shown to be really positive for brain development. So be ruthless before you move. If your children have not played with a toy, and they probably are not going to, let it go. If the move is a time to kind of refresh everything and let go of, just a good kind of reason to not move a ton of stuff, talk to them, have the conversation, include them in this conversation, and definitely let go of as much as possible. Be ruthless before you move, not just with toys and clothing, but with absolutely everything. And a little caveat to this is I have heard, and this is going to sound like the opposite of the advice I just gave, but I have heard from a lot of our clients that during moves when they were children, all of their stuff disappeared. So all of their toys were gone, all of their clothing was gone. They had to give up a lot of stuff when the family moved. And this is a source of hanging on to a lot as an adult. It's one reason that many of my clients are holding on tight to their stuff because they've had a scenario as a child where their stuff was just taken away. So that is definitely not what I am advising to do. I am advising to be ruthless with your decluttering, but when it comes to children, and to be really realistic, when it comes to children, I believe that open communication can help tremendously. And just be cognizant of the fact that if children lose stuff without feeling like they have control over the situation as children. As adults, that may result in them holding onto stuff even tighter. So that decluttering and figuring out what belongs in our life is a conversation that I think we should start at a very, very young age. We start talking to children about money as soon as we can, right? I said to my toddlers, we can't afford this, right? That's a line that I used when my children were toddlers. Um, Another line that we should be using with our children is we need to have space for what we own. We need to have time to take care of what's important to us. We need to understand what is important to us. What is the most important things to you? And maybe what is most important to your children, like in terms of their toys, is not what you would consider to be most important. Don't discount that though. That's most important to them. So find that common ground. So have these conversations about decluttering with your children from a young age, because the reality is we will always have a limited amount of space. We'll always have a finite amount of money, and we will always have a finite amount of time. If we don't have time to take care of something or space to store something, it's going to become clutter. So how can we start to have these conversations at a young age? And this is that was a little deviation from the original question. So when you're moving, be ruthless with decluttering, and in general, communication with your children, your significant others, all of your family members about the clutter. Open communication, respectful communication is really the starting point for all of this. Yes, military families. I've heard this so much, Mary, from military families, that as children, you lost your stuff every couple of years. And that is definitely a trigger for hanging on to a lot of stuff as an adult. Let's see here. There's a question: after donating things, how do you sell a lot of things in a storage unit? So that's a really good question. I think the best way to sell things from storage units is to encourage people to haul away as much as possible. So keep your prices rock bottom and give people deals if they take more stuff. And be open to just donating everything, because that might be the fastest way to do it. We can definitely talk a lot more about storage units on our next episode. I probably haven't talked about storage units in a long time. So I will put this on the show notes for next time, storage units next time. And if you have more questions or follow-up questions or want to share more of your personal scenario, please do. And I will talk about that next Tuesday. As usual, I am so grateful that you were here. You found our YouTube live stream link. Excellent, excellent. Thank you for joining us live. If you're on replay, go ahead and give us a hashtag replay. This episode will be edited and shared on YouTube on like the edited version on Friday at 2 p.m. So if you prefer to listen without me talking about the comments or without me saying hello to people, and also I edit out all of the and random things that I say. Listening to yourself talk is really an interesting experiment. All of that is edited out for the edited version that goes live YouTube on Fridays at 2 p.m. Thank you so much for liking and sharing our content. It really does support our small business. And I look forward to seeing you same time, same place next week. Have a great week, everyone.